It was a warm and sunny day, and the park was filled with the sounds of children laughing, rustling leaves, and the happy barking of dogs running across the green lawn. This place has always been a haven for those looking for peace, for families spending time together, and for dogs enjoying the space to play. On this day, Keanu Reeves' dog, a large, gentle golden retriever named Charlie, was also walking here. The dog was a favorite not only of his owner, but also of local visitors to the park. Charlie, always friendly and full of energy, playfully ran between the trees, catching a tennis ball that was thrown to him. Next to the park, along the main road, was a popular biker trail. The motorcycles roared by, disturbing the harmony of the park, but we were used to it. Motorcyclists often stopped on the side of the road to rest or just to inspect their powerful machines. Most of them had the same manner of behavior: indifference to others, arrogance, and confidence in their own exclusivity. At one point, a man on a black chrome bike stopped in the parking lot near the park. He was a biker with a hardened look, a leather jacket, old worn jeans, and a dark helmet that shone in the sun. There was something rough and brash about his manner, something that immediately attracted attention. He parked his motorcycle and walked toward the park. His gaze glided around, and he showed no interest or respect for the people around him. Everything in him screamed that he was here only for himself. Charlie, jogging nearby, saw the biker and, as always friendly, ran closer. The retriever wagged his tail as if to greet the new visitor. But the biker clearly did not like it. He stopped, grimaced, and took a step to the side as if the dog could do him any harm. Charlie, without realizing it, continued to stand by his side, with a kind and open look that could melt any heart. But this man was not like that. Instead of just walking away or ignoring the dog, the biker lifted his leg and roughly pushed Charlie. The kick was not too hard, but it was enough to make the dog yelp and jump away. The biker laughed loudly, his rude laughter flying around as if he thought it was a joke. People in the park froze. Several witnesses saw this moment and stopped, not knowing how to react. Some held their dog closer to them, while others simply turned away, trying to avoid confrontation. Charlie, obviously frightened, went back to the trees. His tail, which usually wagged cheerfully, now dropped. His eyes showed fear and misunderstanding. As always friendly and open, he could not understand why this man had hurt him. He gently laid down on the grass nearby, licking his paw, even though there was almost no physical damage. But the emotional trauma was obvious. The biker, meanwhile, continued to stand, as if enjoying the attention he had attracted by his actions. His posture was arrogant, and his smile was almost a challenge to those who would dare to say something. But no one dared. The silence that hung over the park only emphasized the tension of the moment. People looked at each other, some secretly filmed what was happening on their phones, but no one came forward. Against this backdrop, a figure appeared among the trees and made the situation change. It was Keanu Reeves. He was walking in the park, as he did almost every morning, and he was getting closer when he heard Charlie scream. At first, he didn't understand what had happened, but when he saw his dog lying on the grass, he sped up his pace. An expression of alarm appeared on his face, which quickly changed to concentration. Keanu walked over to Charlie and bent down to check if he was okay. The dog, seeing his owner, reacted with relief, but remained frightened. Keanu examined his paw, making sure there was no physical injury. But when he looked up and saw the biker standing nearby with a smug smile, his view changed. Now he was not just a man taking care of his dog. This was a man who was ready to protect what he cared about. This first meeting between Keanu and the biker was full of silent tension. The biker, noticing that a celebrity was approaching him, looked embarrassed at first. But his impudence quickly returned. He had no idea who he was dealing with and what consequences his actions would have. After Keanu examined his dog, he stood up, straightened up, and looked directly at the biker. His calm posture and intense gaze gave the impression that the situation was about to change. The surroundings quieted down, and even the wind seemed to have frozen, watching what would happen next. People standing nearby began to move closer, keeping a certain distance, but their interest was obvious. Everyone expected something important to happen. The biker, noticing that the man he had just ignored was approaching him, looked surprised at first, but his self-confidence quickly returned. He crossed his arms over his chest and, standing next to his motorcycle, looked at Keanu with an expression of defiant satisfaction. His gaze clearly said, "Well, what are you going to do?" The biker didn't recognize Keanu because he was dressed quite modestly. A simple black t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers. Everything looked very ordinary, but Keanu's charisma and inner strength left no doubt that he was no ordinary person. Keanu came a few steps closer and stopped. His face was calm, but his eyes were determined. He didn't make any sudden movements or raise his voice. He just stood there, watching the man in front of him. Even without words, his presence was felt as something significant. People in the crowd whispered to each other, recognizing the actor, but no one dared to break the silence that hung over the park. The biker apparently decided that the best way to maintain his position was to try to make himself look like a winner in this situation. He took a step forward, gesturing to the dog lying next to the tree. Charlie, although he looked scared, raised his head and followed his master. The dog's behavior showed the trust he had in Keanu. It wasn't just a human-animal bond. It was something deeper, based on years of love and care. Charlie seemed to know that he would be protected now. Keanu took another step forward, and his shadow fell over the biker. No one could hear what was going on in the actor's mind, but his calm posture seemed to be the best expression of control over the situation. The biker, feeling this look on his face, began to lose his self-confidence. His cocky smile disappeared, and his arms, which had previously been crossed over his chest, slowly dropped. The crowd watching felt a change in mood. People stood in silence, watching every movement intently. Some pulled out their phones to try to film what was happening, but most were so absorbed in the situation that they didn't even think about it. The atmosphere was as if everyone was waiting for something decisive to happen. Gradually, the biker began to realize that he was no longer in control of the situation. His arrogance disappeared, giving way to confusion. But before he could say or do anything, Keanu made an unexpected gesture. He bent down, picked up Charlie's ball that was lying on the ground nearby, and threw it to the side for the dog to play with. Charlie, as if he had received permission, happily got up and ran after the ball. This simple gesture showed that, despite the tension, Keanu maintained full control over his emotions. The biker, watching this, looked embarrassed. He tried to justify his actions, but his voice was weak and uncertain. All his words seemed unimportant in front of the silent power Keanu was demonstrating. The actor didn't answer, just kept looking at him, letting the man feel the full weight of his actions. Gradually, people standing around began to show support. One of the men in the crowd loudly shouted that the biker's behavior was unacceptable. Others supported him with applause and shouts. The atmosphere changed. The biker was now in the center of attention, not as a hero, but as a person who had made a mistake. Keanu turned to Charlie, who had already returned with the ball and was wagging his tail. He leaned down to pet the dog, showing that everything was fine now. His calm demeanor contrasted with the nervousness of the biker, who now stood by and did not know what to do. In the end, the biker did the only thing he could do in this situation. He got on his motorcycle and, without looking at anyone, quickly rode away. His motorcycle's roar disappeared into the distance, leaving behind only tension that slowly dissipated. As the biker disappeared, people began to approach Keanu, expressing their support and gratitude. For many, it was a moment that reminded them that kindness and humanity still matter. One of the men even said that he would remember this day for a long time as an example of how to behave in similar situations. Keanu, avoiding unnecessary attention, simply smiled and thanked everyone. He took Charlie on a leash and continued walking through the park as if nothing special had happened. But those who witnessed this moment knew they had witnessed something important, an example of how one person can make a difference simply by showing determination and kindness. After the biker left the park, the atmosphere gradually returned to calm. People began to disperse, discussing what had happened. But the incident left a deep mark not only in the hearts of the witnesses, but also in the biker's own. What he experienced in the park haunted him. When he returned home, he couldn't stop thinking about the man who had so calmly but confidently put him in his place. What struck him the most was not aggression or anger, but the calmness and strength that radiated from the man. The biker, whose name was Mike, was not used to anyone questioning his behavior. In his company, he was a leader, a man who was not afraid to speak out in a rude or defiant manner. His life was filled with speed, adrenaline, and a lack of responsibility for his actions. But this time, something changed. He realized that the man in the park was not just a random passerby. Mike started looking for information about the man who had confronted him. Thanks to witnesses who had taken video of the incident, he quickly learned that it was Keanu Reeves, a famous actor and a man who was known for his kindness and compassion. Mike had mixed feelings, shame for his behavior and surprise that he had been confronted by such a person. The next day, Mike woke up with the clear intention of learning more about Keanu and perhaps understanding why the encounter had affected him so much. He began reading articles, watching interviews, and even watching the actor's movies. He was struck by the way Keanu uses his fame to help others. Stories about his charity and humility were a revelation for Mike. But Mike was most impressed by the story of the dog. It turned out that Charlie, the dog he pushed, was not just a pet for Keanu. He was a dog Keanu had rescued from a shelter a few years ago. At the time, Charlie was in a miserable state, neglected, scared, and sick. But Keanu not only gave him a home, but also did everything possible to make the dog trust people again. Reading this story, Mike felt a sharp pain in his chest. He realized that he had hurt not just an animal, but a creature that had already experienced a lot of suffering. This thought began to haunt him. He couldn't forget what Charlie looked like the moment he kicked him. The dog's look, his scream, all of this came back to him again and again. Mike decided he had to do something to make amends for his actions. But how? He realized that simply apologizing would not be enough. He needed to prove that he had truly changed, and he decided to start by learning more about helping animals. Mike contacted a local animal shelter and offered his help as a volunteer. At first, he was received with suspicion because his appearance and demeanor did not fit the usual image of a volunteer. But he persisted and was accepted. Working at the shelter was a real challenge for Mike. For the first time, he saw how difficult life can be for animals that have been abused or abandoned. One day was a turning point for Mike. He met a dog that resembled Charlie, the same gentle look and golden fur. This dog was extremely kind, but he was afraid of people because of the injuries he had suffered. Mike realized that this fear was the result of human cruelty. It was a painful realization, but it gave him even more motivation to change. Working at the shelter changed Mike. He began to realize that his past behavior was not only wrong, but it was harmful not only to others, but also to himself. Mike no longer wanted to be the person who humiliates or hurts. He wanted to be the kind of person who does good and helps. After a few weeks of working at the shelter, Mike gathered his courage and decided to meet with Keanu. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he felt he owed him and his dog an apology. Mike contacted one of the volunteers who knew Keanu and asked him to help organize the meeting. Keanu, upon hearing about it, agreed. The meeting took place in the same park where the incident occurred. Mike, dressed in casual clothes, looked completely different than he did that day. He was nervous but determined. When Keanu came in with Charlie, Mike felt a wave of emotion wash over him. He began by apologizing, sincerely admitting his guilt. His voice trembled, but his words were sincere. Keanu listened attentively. His calm and kindness helped Mike express everything he was feeling. When he was done, Keanu looked at Charlie, who was standing next to him, and reached out to pat Mike on the shoulder. It was a gesture of forgiveness that spoke more than any words. That moment was a new beginning for Mike. Not only did he find the strength to change, but he also started working to help other people and animals. His journey was hard, but he knew that every day brought him closer to becoming a better person. After meeting Keanu Reeves in the park, Mike's life began to change. His apology was accepted, but it didn't absolve him of responsibility for what had happened. He realized that an apology alone was not enough to repair the damage that had been done, and that he now needed to take action to prove his intentions. This journey to make amends became the most important challenge of his life. Driving home that day, Mike had mixed emotions. On the one hand, he was relieved that he was finally able to apologize and be heard. On the other hand, he felt the weight of the fact that his actions had left a mark on the life of not only the dog, but also on the hearts of the people who witnessed the incident. Mike decided that it was his duty to prove that change is possible, even for someone who has once made a mistake. The first step on this path was to return to the animal shelter where he had already started volunteering. Now his involvement has become more active. Mike began to take part in all aspects of the shelter's work, from cleaning cages to helping veterinarians care for animals. Every day brought him new experiences and a new understanding of how important it is to take care of those who cannot take care of themselves. One day at the shelter, Mike met a man who brought a dog he had found on the street. The dog was emaciated and scared, with numerous scars on its body. This encounter reminded Mike of Charlie, Keanu's dog, and his own cruelty. He felt a sharp pain in his chest, but instead of avoiding the situation, Mike decided to take responsibility for caring for this dog. He named her Lucky, as a symbol that even in the most difficult circumstances, hope can be found. Lucky became not just a project for Mike, but a true friend. He spent a lot of time with her, teaching her new teams and helping her to trust people. Their bond grew stronger and stronger, and each success of Lucky's inspired Mike to continue his work. In a few months, Lucky transformed from a scared and weak dog to an energetic and confident animal. Her story became an example for other volunteers, and Mike felt that for the first time in his life he was doing something truly meaningful. The next step in his journey was to create an initiative aimed at supporting animals and teaching people to respect them. Mike decided to organize a series of meetings in local schools where he spoke about the importance of kindness and responsible attitude towards animals. His speeches were sincere because he did not hide his mistakes. On the contrary, he talked about how his past actions led him to realize and change. His frankness and willingness to talk about his mistakes inspired respect and trust. One of these meetings was special. It was held at a school located near the park where the incident with Charlie occurred. The audience included children who had witnessed the incident. They listened to Mike with rapt attention, and after his speech, they came up to share their stories. These children talked about their pets and how they learned to respect and love animals. Mike saw that his words resonated, and it inspired him to continue. In addition, Mike began to participate in charity events aimed at raising funds for shelters. He organized motorcycle rallies where bikers from all over the city gathered to support animals. These events became not only a way to raise money, but also a platform to discuss the importance of kindness and empathy. Mike, who used to be known for his cockiness, was now setting an example for others. One day at such an event, he met Keanu again. The actor came to support Mike's initiative, and their conversation was a turning point. Keanu expressed his admiration for the way Mike had changed his life and noted that his example could inspire many. They posed together for a photo that went viral on social media, becoming a symbol that even the worst mistakes can be corrected. A few months later, Mike decided to create his own project, a small organization that would help animals and educate people. This organization became a place where people could learn how to care for animals, understand their needs, and get support in difficult situations. Mike named it A Chance for Happiness in honor of Lucky and all the animals who got a second chance thanks to the kindness of people. His story began to gain popularity. Mike became a frequent guest in the local media, where he talked about his journey from cruelty to kindness. People wrote to him, thanking him for his inspiration and sharing their own stories. His initiatives were supported not only by the local community, but also by people from all over the world. This transformation became possible thanks to one moment: the intervention of Keanu Reeves, who did not remain indifferent to injustice. But the main driving force was Mike's own actions. He proved that change is possible if you find the strength to admit your mistakes and work on yourself. His example proved that even the darkest pages of the past can become the basis for a brighter future. Having gone through all the trials and internal changes, Mike felt that he had finally found his place in life. His past mistakes were no longer a burden, but became an impetus for new achievements. However, the story of his transformation was not over yet. New challenges and new opportunities lay ahead, not only changing him, but also influencing those around him. Mike's Chance for Happiness initiative began to grow rapidly. The organization, which was originally a small group of volunteers, gradually turned into a powerful movement. People from different parts of the city joined Mike, offering their help and resources. Some brought food for the animals, others donated money, and some just came to help out at the shelter. One day, Mike decided to organize a big charity festival to attract even more people to his cause. The festival took place in the same park where his transformation began. This place has become a symbol of change, and Mike wanted his story to inspire others. A variety of events were organized at the festival: music performances, areas for children, animal care workshops, and stands with stories of rescued dogs. Keanu Reeves was a special guest of the festival. His appearance caused a real sensation. He not only came to support Mike, but also shared his own point of view on how important it is to remain human and help those in need. His speech was short but very emotional, and it became the centerpiece of the day. Each of us has the power to change the world around us. Sometimes it only takes one act, a kind, honest, and courageous one, said Keanu. At the festival, Mike presented the story of Lucky, the dog who became his companion on this journey. He told how this animal helped him realize that even those who have experienced pain can find happiness and trust. Lucky became a real symbol of the festival, and many guests wanted to meet her. Despite all of his achievements, Mike realized that the process of change is not something that happens overnight. He continued to work on himself, taking part in trainings and courses in psychology. He wanted to better understand how to help others who, like him, faced internal conflicts. Mike also started writing a book about his journey. It was not only the story of his change, but also a guide for those who want to correct their mistakes. In his writings, he spoke honestly about his feelings, fears, and doubts. The book became his way of sharing his experience and inspiring others. The first edition was sold out in a matter of weeks, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Mike's transformation also affected his friends, especially the biker community he belonged to. At first, many of his fellow riders were incredulous at the change. They did not understand why he suddenly decided to devote his life to helping animals and people. But gradually they began to see how it affected Mike. His energy, determination, and sincerity inspired even the most skeptical. Several of the bikers Mike invited to the festival became his active supporters. They started organizing their own charity rides, helping in shelters, and spreading Mike's ideas. Now the biker community in the city was associated not only with the roar of engines, but also with good deeds. The story of Mike and his organization began to gain popularity not only in his city, but also across the country. Journalists from various publications approached him for interviews, and TV programs invited him to tell his story. Mike became the face of a campaign that encouraged people to be kind and responsible to animals. After a while, he was invited to an international conference on animal rights in London. There he gave a presentation, sharing his experience and achievements. His words inspired delegates from different countries, and many wanted to learn more about his project. A year after the incident, Mike decided to return to the park where it all began. He brought Lucky with him, who was now a confident and happy dog. Volunteers from Chance for Happiness came along, as well as some of Mike's new friends from the biker community. Mike walked through the alleys, remembering the day he hurt Charlie. He no longer felt shame or guilt. Instead, he felt proud of how far he had come. People who met him in the park recognized him and came up to him to thank him for his work. As Mike watched Lucky play with the other dogs, he realized that his journey had only just begun. He knew that there was still a lot of work to be done, but now he had a purpose and the power to move forward. He realized that change is possible for everyone if they have the desire and support. Mike's story is a reminder that even the darkest pages of life can be rewritten. It all started with a single moment, the intervention of Keanu Reeves, who did not remain indifferent. But the main thing in this story is the power of the human spirit, which can change lives and make the world a better place.